Stugotz, do you have a rooting interest in everything happening around the Commanders and the sale of that football team? Dan Snyder possibly getting out of the sport. Do you care how that plays out?
No, I really don't. I mean, I know you're into it. I know a lot of people are into it. I've never really cared about ownership moves, stuff like that. It's not of interest.
The reason you say that, but I know that you're wrong because what I'm rooting for.
It's my interest, though.
I'll tell you why you're wrong, because you will no longer be someone who's not interested if what I'm rooting for happens.
That's a good name for a podcast. Here's why you're wrong.
Here's why your opinion is wrong. Okay. Here's how why you feel the way you feel is wrong. If I now make this messy with Dan Snyder and the other owners are trying to force him to sell it to someone he doesn't want to sell to, he is going to make that a public disgrace for them and make it as messy as possible for them with leaks and God knows what he's going to release, and then you will be interested. You will be interested the same way you were when the collateral damage on this was just John Gruden and Bruce Allen. Like, this has a whole nother layer of mess once the attorneys get involved and they try to tell Dan Snyder, no, you will sell it to Bezos because that's the most expensive thing and it's what the league needs is the highest bidder.
I still don't think I'll be interested. I mean, just being honest with you. Now, if they sold it to Lionel Messi, that would be a completely different story.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm into that.
Yeah.
I don't know what Snyder has alluded to that he has on them, but I must admit that when the Jerry Jones old photo came out, I was like, what were the intentions in this? Because they had the NFL picked Jim Irsay specifically to come out and speak on the Dan Snyder situation because he doesn't give an F. He's like, yeah, you probably got a ton of stuff on me. I am who I am, and I'll not exactly flaunt it, but I'm not hiding from it. And Jerry Jones is kind of the same way. Did that thought not run past your head when the Jerry Jones photo came out?
I am curious about how rich people, when they get into their fights and they can afford all sorts of attorneys and they have FU money, and there are reports from Pulitzer Prize winner Don Van Natta that he's trying to dig up dirt on the commissioner with a private investigator, Stugotz. If they force him out of the league because he does not sell to who they want him to sell to as part of this toxic epicenter that is the Washington Commanders, I think there's all sorts of juicy stuff here. You can't tell me that you weren't interested in the Gruden stuff, because you were interested in the Gruden stuff when he was just mere collateral damage on because he is a middle manager compared to the fight where the fight of the money is.
I mean, it's been kind of alluded to that Snyder was behind the leak on the Gruden stuff. If he really had some ammunition to blackmail owners and embarrass them, he would have to lean on entities that are media partners, and that could be diffused and buried, especially if they want to protect their partnership with the NFL. So unless he has something, I feel like he would have done that already, because he already announced that he's selling the team and Bank of America is in charge of it. And I think all of this is just posturing. We think we know entirely way too much about this negotiation process. That's not how this big money moves. Everything is done in silence. Right now, Tillman Fertitta was reported has a $5.5 billion bid on the Commanders. We know that with purpose. We know that because Bank of America and the current ownership group wants that out there. More stalking horses, the better. And if Bezos is in there, you know that you can pump him for more money because of what he's worth.
Stugotz, I saw the other day, and I never got to this, and I was just curious how the group felt about this, because I saw more shots this weekend go in from a long distance, in or around the buzzer, than you will ever see in one weekend. And it made me think to a couple of weeks ago, a fan, I won't say there was a trend, but there were a couple of fans who hit half-court shots. And in Atlanta, a fan hit a half-court shot. And when I asked the group, a fan pulled out of the arena hitting a half-court shot, what should that person win? What is the amount that it strikes you as the right amount if you are able in that circumstance to be shooting one shot from half court in your dress clothes, and many people not in comfortable clothes. What should that be worth?
$5 million.
Jesus.
Wow.
A half-court shot.
I was going to say 10K.
Take a zero off of that.
I mean,
one shot.
Yeah.
In front of a whole bunch of people wearing street clothes.
A lot of pressure. You're not a professional.
Right.
I see it.
Mm-hmm.
I asked Stugotz the question, and Chris Cody came in at exactly the same moment that Stugotz was saying $5 million with $10,000, and $10,000 is what.
Sorry about that.
10 grand is what was won there.
What?
And I thought it wasn't enough. I thought you got to win more than that. If that's the probabilities on making that shot.
Thank you.
From half court, 10,000 did not seem like enough money to me. Given how improbable it is, given the pressure of it, given that you only get one crack at it.
$5 million too much?
$5 million is also excessive. I think you're going to bankrupt some companies that way. Do I have it wrong, though? Do you think if you hit that shot, I'm sure $10,000 is a lot of money. I'm not saying it's not a lot of money.
I'm thinking about where I am. If it's some like sad little fair, where, like, you know what I mean? Like is this an NBA game? Is this like a college game?
It's an Atlanta Hawks basketball
NBA game. Like, I'm assuming there's a good sponsor for this bit.
It's a professional basketball game where $10,000 to the people who are playing basketball and entertainment is not very much to the people who run this thing.
It's Harrah's Casino. Sorry, Bill. It's Harrah's Casino who sponsors it, so they have the money. This particular guy I think you're talking about has hit 2 of these in 4 years. 2 in 4 years.
Ringer.
I mean, seriously, that is deserving of $5 million. The first one, maybe 50. You hit a second one, it's got to be like $5 million, right?
I could be wrong about this, but a lot of these are like insured also. Yeah. So it's not like they have the money on hand. Like they pay whatever company it is that insures this because you're betting it's not going to happen.
That's how it is with like hole-in-one things at golf tournaments. A golf tournament will pay like $2,000. And you will get if they hit a hole-in-one, a car will be given away. But this company is just taking your $2,000 with the assumption that they're never.
No one's ever going to do it.
Right.
Exactly.
I think I seen it as high as 50,000, but it was layup, free throw, 3-pointer, half court. So the stakes are higher in that situation.
That's even harder.
Yeah.
That should be 10 mil.
Well, Billy, yesterday you were worried very publicly for the amount of money that Drake was losing on betting, and then you came in sheepishly today and were like, hey, all of that might have been me being fooled and butt cracked.
What? No. Yes. I mean, it seems like he has some
Which
sort of...
is it?
It seems like he has some sort of deal with a gambling thing, so it may not be real. Which I didn't know because I don't really follow Drake all that closely. I should have looked it up. I was worried about him.
You followed enough to be worried about his gambling problem.
I mean, but like not worried like I'm losing sleep over it. I lose sleep over other things, but not worried about that. You know what I mean? Like it's one of those things where like, oh my God, I'm so worried. It's like T's and P's. You know what I mean? Like you're not really T's and P's a lot of the time. You just say it.
What's the last thing in celebrity you've lost sleep over?
In celebrity? Huh. Get back to me on that.
I don't think you're going to lose sleep over the worries of Drake's gambling problem, but where did you get proven to be wrong? Because you gave off to the audience that Drake is going to go broke. You're minding your own business, don't lose sleep over it, but you were very worried publicly that Drake has a gambling problem and is going to lose all his money because of the way that he's gambling. And now it seems that you've been duped in an advertisement that Drake is basically getting publicity off of his giant bets because is it Bitcoin? Is it just a gambling company? What is it?
He has, I guess he's partnered with this thing called Stake, which is crypto gambling, which seems super legit. And it says here that he has wagered over $1 billion in 2 months. So that seems not possible that Drake has $1 billion that he's gambled in 2 months.
Is he just doing influencer marketing in the modern age for that company? You said it was Stakes?
No, just singular. Stake, yeah.
Fake.
You think it's fake? Stugotz is saying, which is it then? We're worried about Drake's gambling problem, or you've been duped into giving some energy to worrying about Drake when you shouldn't have?
I mean, I was worried about the amounts of money that he was gambling, but if he's partnered with a gambling company, then it may not be his money that's being gambled.
But in that case, though, they've achieved exactly what they wanted to achieve by bringing a whole lot of attention to look how much Drake is betting that's not an actual real amount of money.
Yes.
Okay, very good.
I was tricked? I don't know. I don't know. I have a question for you guys, unrelated to this, but a little bit back to DVN for a second.
What's that, Billy?
I love DVN. I'm just going to say that.
Don
and the
Van
Rooster.
Natta.
Yeah, T's and P's, all the respect in the world to DVN and the Rooster.
You want to tell people who the Rooster is?
It's his partner from Domino's, and we played Domino's a couple years ago. Is there a title besides Pulitzer Prize Award winner that's more like hoity-toity? They're like, ugh. You know what I mean? Like when someone gets
Nobel
introduced
Prize.
with that?
Nobel Prize.
Nobel Prize.
Yeah.
Nobel Prize.
Peabody Award winner.
Oh yeah, that's
Oh,
all. That's also
please.
brutal. Yeah.
What is the point that you're making?
It's just one of those things where you live off of that forever, right? You win one of those, and what if it's like an off year? You know what I mean?
Does
Like
have-
it's an off year for the whatever the award
It
was.
does have a lot of weight associated.
Yeah, the
It is
Pulitzer
heavy,
Prize.
yeah.
It's like, oh, this guy's better at being an intellectual. This guy or a girl is better at being an intellectual.
There has to be a winner, though, in the bunch, though, that the other one, to Billy's point, that the other ones look at and be like, that was a bad year.
That was a bad year for news or whatever.
Your Pulitzer
reporting.
is the worst of all the
Yeah.
Pulitzers.
Have you? How many awards have you won for your writing?
A few? I don't know. A
What's
lot.
the most prestigious?
It's just, but it's just National Associated Press Writers Award.
Ugh.
oh.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate the flattery of those. The plaques are
Which is the one that you carried in your hand while you
in
needed to take
storage.
a shit?
There were 6 of them.
The
It wasn't-
AP.
You right?
It wasn't just one
Look
of
at
them.
me,
It was-
Louis.
well, wait a minute. You just asked.
It was
You
weird.
have
It was
6
a weird
trophies?
He
Just
had 6
asked.
trophies.
It was
At
a
one
big
time.
year. It was a big year. I
What
came-
was the
What was the piece?
These stories there were a number of them. At feature writing, column writing, there were a number of different categories. But the
Was
reason
this
The
the
Pell
one?
Grants.
Dan, no, that was the one where he went to China.
Levon Hernandez, you're so good at baseball.
No, he went to China with somebody.
Who was it?
Did you go to China with?
that was not what I won an award for.
Wow.
The important part of this story is not the winning of the 6 awards. It's that I was locked out of my house and in a moment of great humbling had to shit in the backyard with those plaques next to me. That is the story. The story is not about the 6 awards. The story is not a flattering story. The story is that I was locked out of my house when I was penguin walking up the driveway with my 6 awards, and I was in the backyard, and the neighbor could see, hey, there's Dan LeBatard squatting in the backyard surrounded by his writing plaque.
You have like a chain link fence. How do they see you?
What do you mean? How do they see me? It's not. I don't have so much shrubbery
like a
in
wooden
my backyard.
fence. What kind of fence was it?
It was it was not a fence that protected my privacy in a moment when I was shitting in the backyard.
I'll keep it grounded there.
That's the universe telling you, never get too high.
Yeah. What was the topic? What the jure?
There were 6 of them. There were 6 different writing
Oh, so
awards.
wow,
so
it's
you
a
won
big
for
year.
6 different projects.
Yes.
A lot of hardware.
Wow.
Watch out, Opry Plaza.
Do you send like a thank you to like the subjects of your writing, like when you win an award? Like, hey, hatchet wielding hitchhiker who murdered people, who I wrote a story about. Like, thanks for
Kai.
existing. Thank you, Kai, for murdering people because I won this award on your behalf. Or do you like thank them in the acceptance speech?
There was no acceptance speech.
Oh, it was like a drive-through. You just pick up the trophies.
Yes, it was like a McDonald's drive-through where they just give out awards. And
Like a
plaques.
McDonald's drive-through, or was it a McDonald's drive-through?
You
that
with a
did that?
chain link fence is an upset.
Yeah, surprising.
I was in college. It was like I was in my early 20s.
Oh, you won awards in college.
And he had a
Oh,
house.
wow, look at you.
I mean, you own
Is
a
that the most
house in this
prestigious one?
market?
A phenom over here.
I was in my early 20s. Why are you guys asking me all these
Did you have
questions?
a
Just
pool?
wondering.
Did you have a
I mean,
pool?
we know
Trying to
nothing
get to know
about
you
you.
better.
Paint the
Yeah.
picture.
Did you have a pool?
You did win a New Times Award in 2018.
The point
There you
I
go.
love those
the
awards.
point of the story
very
They seem rigged.
was not to celebrate what I won writing awards for. It was to make fun of those achievements when paired against the Pulitzer Prize, which any year is legitimately difficult to win.
But not in the off years.
There has to be an off year. Dan.
Exactly,
Yeah.
right.
They're all
Right.
great
in
every
the club,
year.
yeah.
Yes.
There's like the Heisman House. Like there's someone in the Heisman House that you're like, what is this person
Eric
doing?
Crouch.
Jason White.
Exactly. You know what I mean? When you write a Pulitzer Prize winning piece, because it's for one piece, right? Like it's
Yes,
one.
well, there are a number of different categories, but it is in those categories for one piece, and it is all of American
So
journalism.
you've looked into it.
I would never win such an award. It's very hard to win any year. It's hard to win.
Some years not as hard.
You
though. We
mentioned
can agree
that,
on
but
that.
we can't agree on that. You
But
guys
when
don't
you're
know
writing
what you're
it,
talking
are
about.
you going for it? Are you saying I'm gonna win a Pulitzer for this? Like, do you say, you know what?
Many
This-
newspapers do, yes.
So like sometimes it's like this is 4,000 words, but if we can get it to like 4,400, that'll give us the Pulitzer.
It tends to be resources, not words.
Mm.
It tends to be we were going to try and win an award, win a prestigious award. You guys think there are off years for the Nobel Peace Prize?
Oh, of course.
All of the
There has to be.
all of the world's giving.
I mean, I would think in all the years of the world wars that those are off years for peace prizes. You know what I mean? Like, there's a world war going on. The world is at war with each other, but they're giving someone an award for peace. That's an off year.
But would you not agree, though, that if you're competing for a victory of one, this is why I'm saying the Atlanta Hawks half-court shot should be worth more. If you're competing against everybody to win a single thing, when the content is produce all of your best, say, investigative reporting done by all of the entities that write words, you guys think there's an off year for such a thing?
Chris found one.
I mean, 2017, Art Cullen writing about, agricultural interests in Iowa. Exactly. I mean, come on.
Slow year.
Come on.
Yeah.
Literally writing about corn. I mean,
No nutritional value.
Art.
that's what I hear.
Is that Alex Jones dismissing?
No, that wasn't him.
Dismissing art. Corn has no nutritional value.
That's what they say.
It's the worst veggie.
Because it's a
It's
veggie.
not. It's a starch.
I
isn't
remember
it?
one time I was eating it around Jorge Sedano. He's a Cali guy
Oh,
now.
boy, here we go.
Kale
Like that name,
smoothies.
Here we go.
And he was just like, that it's not healthy corn. It's like, shut up. Give me
Exactly.
corn.
He probably has shirts made out of corn.
Sodium. Shut up.
Sodium.
Yeah.
He
No,
went
that's
full
him.
California when he got.
That's him.
He went.
He's changed.
Yeah.
It is startling.
Careful, he's gonna tweet at you later.
Jorge Sedano, as a Cuban man, has gone full California cliche of kale smoothies. You know that corn's bad for you, and he's not wrong, but he's so very wrong.
I was listening to the Rollin' remix. You remember the Urban Assault Vehicle? That was a rap version of the Limp Bizkit song Rollin'. And it has like DMX on it. It has Redman and Method Man. And there's one part where like Method Man is flowing as as a total non sequitur. He's like, "What the fuck's a Hootie and the Blowfish?" And then he just continues rhyming. I'm wondering was he just genuinely curious? It was.
You were wondering whether this was caught on air by accident because he just had
He was just asking a question.
A stray thought.
I thought that was the lead singer's name for most of my life.
Yeah, everyone
thought his
thought
name
that.
was
We've
Hootie.
asked him
Yeah.
about that. He
Yeah.
hates that.
A lot of people think Darius Rucker is Hootie.
Right.
And that his band is the Blowfish.
Check my dangerous slang atrocious. When I let these nuts hang, focus it's Wu-Tang. What the fuck's a Hootie and the Blowfish?
He is Hootie, though. I mean, he might not like it, but he's the lead singer and leader of that band. It's Hootie and the Blowfish. He's Hootie, the rest of the Blowfish. I mean,
Well, he says that's Darius Rucker says that is not the case.
well, he's wrong. I mean,
Does he know how band names work?
Exactly right.
Because he's the lead singer.
Right.
And it's
Yeah.
something and the blank. Hey,
Well-
you're the something.
Well, Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes, Harold Melvin was the drummer. Teddy Pendergrass was the lead singer. So there's the exception to
You're
the
always
rule
there, Roy.
Imagine if Sonny and Cher
Thanks.
were like, "We're not Sonny or Cher. That's just the name of our band." You'd be like, "What the hell are you talking about?"
My name's Kyle.
Exactly. Kyle and Judy.
It's an understandable mistake that a lot of people would make. Darius Rucker does not like it.
They do that with Alice Cooper. The Alice Cooper was the name of the band, and everyone just said the front man is Alice Cooper to the point that it's like, okay, I guess I'm just Alice
He just
Cooper.
gave up. He ended
The
up.
band was Alice Cooper.
Mike Ryan has been noticing something here, Stugotz, that we don't talk enough about here, even though occasionally we will get obsessed with the aliens. Mexico's president, you know, Stugotz, that the world has just gone crazy. That our leadership is the leadership that we deserve. It's not the leadership we need. It's not the leadership that impresses us. It's not the leadership that is smarter than us when we so badly need leadership to be smarter than us. But the president of Mexico, and I don't even know how to pronounce this mythical Mexican creature.
Vicente Fox.
The president of Mexico, whose name is Honoris Manuel López Obrador.
Oh.
Oh, nice attempt right there.
He is it the Alux Mike? He has retweeted. He has put out on social media
Is it Aluxe? What is?
the Mexican creature.
It's not a Lux, I can tell you that.
What is it? What is the Mexican creature that is the equivalent of the chupacabra, of Bigfoot, of the Loch Ness Monster? For the Mexican people, what is the pronunciation?
Is it alue?
I think it might be aluje because
Aluje,
X
yeah, because
in
it has a J.
yeah.
Okay, I don't.
Call it
I'm not familiar.
FAL.
I don't know. I'm not familiar with this creature. What does it look like, Mike?
It looks like an elf. And this photo that Mexico's president shared on social media definitely looks like an elf wearing a hood, and there's 2 glowing eyes in a tree. And it looks zoomed in, so it's not picture perfect 4K quality, but he was outside and he was startled by something, and he has given official political voice to this thing being real. And I got to tell you, when you Google it, ALUEXE, go ahead and Google that. You'll see the photos. It's pretty convincing that Mexico's president saw a mythical creature.
He thinks he did, and it's part witch, part elf. I'm having a hard time explaining to you what it is. You guys do realize that at one point, Jimmy Carter filed a UFO report, right? Former president of the United States, Jimmy Carter. I don't remember any of the details
T's and
about
P's, by
this.
the way. It looks like he's on his deathbed. What?
Yeah.
No, he's no.
He's in hospice.
I'm pressed. Yeah, he's in hospice.
He's in hospice, yeah.
Yeah.
What do you mean that's a fine?
He once had an ice cream at Whip and Dip.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh.
Also won a Nobel Peace Prize. How
He
about
did?
that? He did, yeah.
What
look it
year?
up.
What year?
I don't know.
Can you guys look up for
Telling you.
me the
Might have been an off
details
year.
of the UFO sighting of Jimmy Carter? But it's not often that the president of a country, Mike, a lot of people are pointing out this photo looks suspiciously similar to a photo that was sent out in 2021 by somebody else, that this is not government
Like it's the
intelligence.
same one?
Yes.
Well, or the same photo.
But
or the
what-
same mythical creature.
First of all, tell me more about the Mexican mythical creature. I don't
It's
know
a
what-
Mayan descent, and it's a lot like down here in South Florida. We have chupacabra sightings, and this is basically Mexico's chupacabra. And now I'm getting into the legend of the story, but the elf, I really need to find out how to pronounce this one, but legends say that if this elf stops and asks farmers or travelers for Lukes, thank you, Lewis, for an offering, which is refused, then the Alukes will then wreak havoc and spread illness. So if you ever have a stranger that could be disguised as the Alukes, and you better be nice to them. We were on the subject of picking up hitchhikers. Yeah. You don't want to tell the Alukes no if they're around, because then it'll ruin all your crops.
And did you find anything fascinating about this story other than a government leader at the top of a food chain giving voice to a mythology that is nonsense? But
yeah, I found more to it. Apparently, there isn't just one. See, in Florida, we only have one chupacabra. It's just this one thing that's going around.
there's also
dismembering
only one.
goats.
There's also only one Bigfoot, correct?
Right.
No.
No?
No.
We think.
Well,
yeah.
no, that's
there's
right.
a colony.
And the abominable
Yeah.
snowman
No, yeah.
too.
What did Jose Canseco tell you?
There's like a colony out in the desert somewhere.
According to Jose Canseco?
Yeah.
Oh.
A colony of big feet.
Big. Yeah. Well, I think
Yes.
it's Bigfoots.
What is the plural? Put it on the poll at LeBatard Show. What is the plural of Bigfoot? Is it Bigfoots or big feet? You're saying there's a colony of big
Well, Jose was saying. Unfortunately, we never got to make that trip, but
Right.
Oh, no.
Because you could pay Jose, he would give you a tour to meet the colony, correct?
Well, we never
fell
actually we
apart.
tried.
Yeah.
What can you tell me before Mike gives me more historical
Well, now I'm
information?
fucked because you guys asked me to tell you how to pronounce it, and apparently it's not a good thing to say it out loud.
Oh.
It's
And
kind of
that-
like
what would-
Beetlejuice. Now I will summon a disgruntled thing from its home.
but
I don't think we've pronounced its way of it pronouncing it once correctly, so we have nothing to worry
don't
about.
worry, Frankie's at the door. This will not get in.
Yeah.
Let me ask Frankie if he's seen one. I'm just going to put up a description. The last time I did that was with Joaquin Gonzalez, but
That is old school reference, former University of Miami offensive lineman
Dan said
Joaquin
something to upset him.
Gonzalez.
Keep his
Peepo,
name out your mouth.
the
I think he
character
threatened to fight him
Peepo
or something.
insulted the University of Miami. And when I say character, I don't mean he's fake. I mean he's a wild character. And Joaquin threatened to punch him and me in the face.
I think it was you specifically that he told Manny Navarro he would punch in the nose.
Because
That's the ultimate goal around here, Dan.
yes,
To say things that will get you punched in the
Yes,
nose.
I've gathered. I gather. Right up until I want to put the billboard up in Buffalo that gets everybody punched in the nose, and then it just ends up with me punched in the nose. Yes, I've realized that that's the way that one happens. I thought there was only one Bigfoot.
Common misconception.
I want to know the details of how far you got, because you were talking to the highest levels of ESPN management about how to execute a Jose Canseco trip, and it would seem to be the easiest thing in the world, except Jose Canseco was asking for cash.
And it might be Ozzy. I mean,
Yeah, that's true.
Well, from what I remember, and I think we've told this, but from what I remember, they got in contact with who was supposed to be Jose Canseco's representative, Morgan, who was Jose Canseco's girlfriend. And then Jose was on the call in the planning to make this happen. And there was a lot of interest to make this happen from multiple people. And I don't want to speak out of turn, but the last I heard, and this is where I got kind of stressful and had a conversation with my wife.
You were going to produce the piece, and
I think
were you
that
going to be the talent on the piece?
I think so. And I think that the landing place was going to be ESPN Plus for like this thing.
And it had a budget
Of $100,000 from what I heard. And that's when I was like, I need to talk to my wife because this is like getting very real. And that's a lot of money, and I may die. But also, I can't not do it when that amount of money is committed to something.
How did the negotiations get that high before it broke apart? Because I don't believe the real story has ever been told.
I think they just disappeared like everything else. I think like they started going down the path. They had conversations. And my guess, and I don't know this, is then they also said, oh, wow, this got real. We can't continue this. Like, because what are we going to do when someone gives us that amount of money? And it was always like really weird. Like, you can't be in the car with us in the RV. Because I think I remember it was 5 people in an RV with him. You couldn't go in the RV with him for like privacy reasons or something because it was like a secret place. But you could follow behind him in another car. And then like Disney security was getting involved in this. And they're like, I don't know that this is the best idea going into the middle of the desert with Jose. We can't have someone actually there. We're going to pay all this money.
How many meetings? This is what people don't understand about Billy's executive career at ESPN and the way that the sparks would get created. How much time was spent or wasted on the negotiations of getting
that's
you?
a fair way of putting it.
Well, how long? Well, it never happened. How many hours were invested?
I was not in
never
most
happening?
of the surprising thing was who was involved in these meetings. Like when I heard the names of the people involved and the dollars that were potentially being committed to this, I was like, wow, this might actually happen. Like this was all fun and games and was a joke, but this is quickly moving. I've lost control of this. Like this car has gotten away from me.
Yeah, well, this is what happens. Whether it's God Bless Football, you like making big, giant, sprawling messes. And
no,
then
I like making successes, but usually,
you
they
make
just die
big,
on the
giant,
vine.
sprawling messes.
I had another idea for a show that will never happen now. And at the time, I thought that it was a really good idea. And then it became like problematic. So it was like, let's get away from that and let's not do it. I had this idea before there was like Twitter incidents with Mike Leach to go around the country and have him like take me to like spots of like hidden treasures and stuff like that and like different pirate things. And it would almost be like a history show through the eyes of like Mike Leach.
That's a great
teaching
show.
me about like pirates and history and treasure and all these myths and all this stuff. But then like
Yes.
there was, things.
That's a
occurred.
great show.
he would have loved that.
I
Yes.
thought so, but it didn't get anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to, before we get to Ron McGill, I don't want to skip past something that Stugotz threw in there that the younger audience might not be familiar with. It is absolutely true that Jose Canseco agreed before Jake Paul made it popular to be in a celebrity boxing match. And it was here in South Florida. That night, he sent in his place his twin brother, Ozzy Canseco. That is not a made-up story. The stories fell apart when people realized that the boxer had tattoos that Jose did not. But Jose did. There was the possibility, Billy, that you would have gotten to the Bigfoot colony with someone purported to be Jose Canseco, who would have instead been Ozzy Canseco.
The story would have been great, but like we would have come back with no footage, or like his brother running through the desert in like a costume that's like that. I mean, that's clearly like Harry and the Hendersons. Like, what are we doing right now?
What you would have gotten, yes, for $100,000 on ESPN Plus, we would have gotten a Billy Gill report of what looked like in the distance a shadowy figure, Ozzy Canseco running in some sort of bear costume.
Or I could have died, which was like the other thing.
Well, what are the conversations with your wife? How are you dying in this scenario?
Because I'm going to a remote location with Jose Canseco and others without them allowing anyone to know where you are in the middle of the desert. So I'm assuming that cell service is sketchy at best. And we're going to encounter big feet or Bigfoots. Like, you can't predict what a Bigfoot is going to do. You know what I mean? I'm pretty sure I would have had to sign a waiver away. If Dan, have you ever encountered a Bigfoot? You don't know what they're going to do.
Ron Magill joins us now as an expert in all these things. He's fresh off Stugotz's birthday, vacation. We've got a lot of questions to ask him. But first, among the mythical creatures that you have heard about, chupacabras, Bigfoot, whatever the most ridiculous ones are, is there any mythology that you believe closer to the truth than all the others, Ron?
Closer to the truth would be some kind of primate, really. You know, I don't want to say no. There's nothing that's even close to the truth of some of these mythology. You know, Loch Ness monster, Bigfoot, chupacabra. Chupacabra is the most ridiculous one of all. But they're all pretty ridiculous when you really think about it and you apply any kind of science to it. Other than the Loch Ness monster, I'd have to give that the biggest credibility, only because we know less about the ocean than we know about the moon. And there's so many great depths about the ocean that are so unbelievably inaccessible to human beings. We really don't know all that's living down there. So who knows?
You mentioned that, and I saw, and I'm assuming this is true, that a jellyfish the size of, I think, 7 Shaquille O'Neals and weighing about, in height, and weighing about 300 pounds was pulled out of the ocean. Where does that rank in terms of weird things pulled out of the ocean?
Well, it's certainly not, common, but man, when you look at some of the things that have been pulled out of the ocean, some of these, especially deep sea fish, they look like, some kid drew it after doing LSD for a week. I mean, it's just something that's really totally outrageous stuff that you would never think could survive. Think about just a giant squid. I mean, for the longest time, we didn't know about that animal. Here's an animal, we're used to eating our calamari. Think about what kind of calamari a giant squid would make. Something that's 20, 25, 30 feet long, man. This is huge. So these are all things at the bottom of the ocean that we don't know about. I mean, I think there's incredible mysteries still to be discovered there.
Is there one above all others for you, Ron, where it has been discovered from the ocean, and even you, who is unsurprised by the weirdest mysteries being pulled out of the ocean, are like, holy bleep, how is it possible that that exists at the bottom of the sea?
Look at some of these deep sea fish that have bioluminescence. I mean, they make their own light. They have these antennas coming out. They got teeth that are like twice the width of their mouth. It's just unbelievable. They look like some weirdy, horrible monster.
Like John Forrest.
Every one of these things. What'd you say, Mike?
Ron, so I've read that otters sleep on their backs in the water, and if they have another otter with them, they will lock arms to.
True.
And I'm just wondering, animals with the most interesting sleeping habits that can compete with that.
God, you guys hit me up with some really good questions. I don't know. I mean, there's some animals that curl into some really weird positions when they sleep. Things like pangolins. I mean, even gerbils, for that matter, will curl up in these really kind of tight balls when they sleep. Birds, of course, will do that a lot. They'll bury their head in their back, where if you look at them sitting on a branch, it looks like a headless bird. You think, how do they do that? There's a lot of weird positions that animals sleep in. And there are animals that certainly, like birds especially, that will sleep huddled next to each other all the time, if for no other reason, just to preserve body warmth or body heat. Things like penguins and animals like that, you'll see huddled up next to each other quite a bit. But there is a reason for it. It's not necessarily, the emotional love reason that many people associate with.
Which animal sleeps the least?
Oh, geez. I don't know. That would be a pure guess on my part. But I mean, there are animals that, of course, only sleep. They're able to put to sleep only half of their brain. Like some birds can continue to fly and put half of their brain to sleep. and then open up the other half of their brain. So they don't have full sleep the whole time. They literally have this partial sleep. I think that's also possible for some, what else? It's birds and something. But dolphins. Dolphins do the same thing. So, they have the ability to kind of put the sleep part of their brain so the other brain can keep them alive while the other brain rests. It's really incredible how animals can adapt to life.
Do you believe there's a correlation between the increase of animal attacks on humans and climate change?
Well, yes and no. I mean, certainly animals now are being forced to leave their normal habitats as they migrate north if they're trying to get into cooler climates. So when they do that, they're starting to compete with territories of other animals that they can get quite defensive. But there also is that's a direct correlation to just the human population continuing to grow, expand into animal habitats. I mean, the more we continue to develop areas that are normally animal habitats, the more we're going to run into these animals, and there are going to be challenges for that living space. Everything wants to survive, man. So it's not that animals are being mean or they're attacking. They're defending territory that was originally theirs, and they're being pushed out. So a lot of times you get these conflicts. But climate change certainly has something to do with it because, again, animals are being forced into new habitats as they seek the climate that they're used to. Whether it's getting warmer or getting colder, whatever it is, they're being moved into habitats they're not normally used to, which causes unnatural competitions with the animals that were previously there.
Ron, two-part question that are kind of unrelated. First part, why does my dog like to burrow herself in her own shit? She'll go outside and then she'll kind of rub her back on it and rub her face on it. Why is that?
Absolutely. What they're doing is they're marking their scent is what they do. And they'll do that a lot. You'll see if you bought a dog, and I'm sure listeners will call in and say, oh my God, if the dog finds a dead squirrel or a dead possum or something, they'll rub up all against it. They get on their backs. It gets this rotting dead flesh. And there's a couple of reasons behind that. They think, well, one is the animal's instinct to disguise its own scent as a predator, so it could sneak up on things. Okay, but there's another thing. It's just they love it, man. They just love the smell of this stuff. So animals get in their own feces a lot, again, just to establish their own territory. So wherever they walk, they're spreading that scent. Okay, they're trying to say, this is my neighborhood. That's what they're doing.
Yeah, some creatures just like that stuff. They'll wade through any kind of feces to form a stronger union.
Could they just be stupid, Ron?
No, it's not stupid, Billy. It's, again, realize, why do dogs urinate in places other than having to get rid of wasted fluid in their body? Why do they defecate places other than what?
What would you say if I just started rubbing myself with my shit?
That's a good question, Ron.
Chris,
you'd probably say, you're stupid, Chris. Don't do that.
Mm-hmm. I'd say, welcome to Highlight.
Chris, you're not competing. You're not competing with other humans for territory.
You haven't seen the housing market.
We have a different set of mores that we use. But if we get back into the primitive part of humans developing, evolving, there are times when listen. There are times you and I would probably use antiperspirant. We try to take a shower. We try to smell clean all the time. But there are cultures in our world where they would never use antiperspirant. The stronger the body odor, the sexier they are. So, it depends on how the culture's evolved over the millennium.
Ron, second part of my question. How do we know that there isn't a Yeti or a Bigfoot out there? I said they were unrelated, Billy. Thank you.
Listen, I can't 100% say no, but let me use common sense here, which seems not to be too common anymore. If you have a Yeti or a Bigfoot, this is an animal that's full of hair, right? Everyone, they say this, it's full of massive quantities of hair. And they say they've seen it in all these places. And they can't find one flippant strand of hair that identifies something other than something that's already been discovered through DNA. Understand the science that we have now. They don't find any kind of feces, any kind of urine, nothing, no leftover, nothing. Think about this. Either the animal, let's say there's even just one, it has to live 1,000 years, right? But there's got to be at least two if they're surviving as a species, so they're breeding. And you don't see anyone. There's no poop. There's no hair. Nothing anywhere. Come on, guys. Just use common sense. Just use common sense. Most of these spottings are usually people who've had a little too much to drink. They're out there in the wild in the freezing cold way too long. They're getting, hypotoxic. They're having all kinds of other mental issues, and that creates a mirage, so to speak. So I want to believe there's something out there. Nothing would make me happy to think, oh my God, they've discovered Bigfoot. What an incredible, fascinating discovery. But
nothing would make you happier?
Well, okay, I'm stretching that. That would just make me very happy. Okay? It would make me very happy and fascinated.
Have you ever picked up a hitchhiker or gone hitchhiking yourself? Let me do that again. The defending world champs. Have you ever gone hitchhiking or picked up a hitchhiker?
No, I never have. That was just something that was ingrained in me very young by my parents. And I remember seeing some slasher movie that started with a hitchhiker. I said, no, never again.
Would you give us some advice on the proper hitchhiking etiquette in order to, you imagine, get someone to pick you up as a hitchhiker? We were arguing about whether panic desperation was better than a cool calm.
What would your strategy be, Ron?
Panic desperation wouldn't be for me. I'm 6'6", 235 pounds. If they see some crazy freaking guy acting panic and desperate, I don't think anybody's going to stop to pick that guy up. I certainly would.
With that mustache, people would think you might be a mythological creature emerging from the swamp at that size. People might confuse you with the chupacabra.
Got it. I would try to go with the calm thing. I would try to go with the kind of like, I'm really I'm really down. I need help.
Yes.
More of a not this. Because no, I wouldn't stop for somebody like that, because I think he's gonna. It's like trying to save a drowning person who's going crazy in the water. You might get killed in the process.
Right.
So you'd let someone drown?
No, I wouldn't let someone drown. I just say you'd be much more cautious if someone is just saying, listen, I need help, as opposed to really going freaking nuts. No, I would be on the side of the road with this face of, God, I just need help. This look in my eyes of, I need help. But
I need help. The long stick, right, with a little sack tied around the end of it with 2 apples and a pair of jeans. You need that, right? It shows that you're desperate. You have nothing, right?
Okay.
Huckleberry Finn.
I got it, Stugotz.
Ron, did you ever have any interactions or experiences with Jose Canseco when he was his most popular version of himself and he wanted the animals from your zoo to live with him?
No, he didn't want the animals from our zoo. I actually got to meet Jose because he played against us in a softball league down here in Deering Bay. And I just remember that he hit that softball out into the bay. It was out of the field and it went into the bay. The guy just absolutely crushed it. He was so pumped up, and he came with his brother. And I don't know how they mistaken his brother, even though it's his twin brother. They didn't look anything like twins. He was almost half again the size of his brother.
So great.
Anybody who fell for that is like intelligent.
Ron, thank you. Before we get out of here, Chris Cody, I wish for you to give the audience 2 factoids. 1, Jimmy Carter, the UFO that he saw. I need to know the American president, what it is that he saw, and the details of that, and the Jose Canseco boxing match that ended with Jose Canseco sending his twin brother, identical twin who doesn't look anything like him, to box in his place. Get me those stories. In the interim, I tell the audience, because the audience, Stugotz, is overwhelming, whether it's Mike Schur's charitable efforts with the Pozcast, which I urge you to enjoy because what he does with Joe Posnanski is a lot of fun, or the substantive endowment of one Ron Magill. They have raised more than $100,000, our audience, Stugotz, for Mike Schur, and over the years, more than $1 million for Ron Magill.
Amazing.
So I continue to tell you that Ron Magill does this out of the kindness of his heart. This is something that is our most popular segment and our longest standing segment. Before we get out of here, though, Ron, Valentine's Day and your vacation, how does Ron Magill do those things?
With my wife.
Mm-hmm.
Hey,
hell yeah,
baby.
Like a boss.
Understood, but you just came back from Valentine's Day and your vacation. I was arguing that your vacation, given how romantic you are, may have just been a week of Valentine's Day.
You're probably right about that, Dan. And today's my birthday, so tonight's going to be another big gift.
Wow.
Oh,
Oh, wait a minute. Let's give him our highest honor here. What birthday is this for Ron Magill?
Big 6'3", gentlemen. Big 6'3".
I don't care. Good luck.
Thank you, Ron. Happy 63rd birthday. Good seeing you.
Guys.
We will come back with Chris Cody, whatever it is he has learned with his Pulitzer Prize-winning research back there on Jimmy Carter and the Jose Canseco, Ozzy Canseco controversy.
He asked a lot of them. I mean,
Not that much, really. Just what a producer would do.
I'm ready. Are we ready to do it now?
Yes.
I mean, you just.
oh, look at you.
Yes. Yes.
Come on. What are we talking about here? I don't know
was
what I
that?
just turned into.
Who
He's
was
right.
that?
No, he's right.
New York accent there.
Who was that? That was not a New York
Ah, here,
accent.
let's go
It was
here.
an old-timey press agent from the 1920s.
What do you want? What Carter's like?
I
what he
want
claimed?
what Jimmy Carter saw, what he thinks he saw. He was on a boat. Was he on a rowboat or something?
In 1973, he filed a report with the International UFO Bureau that he had seen an unidentified flying object in October of 1969. He described waiting outside for a Lions Club meeting in Leary, Georgia to begin at 7:30 p.m. when he spotted that what he called the darndest thing I'd ever seen. Carter, as well as 10 or 12 people who witnessed the same event, described the object as very bright with changing colors and about the size of the moon. Carter reported that the object hovered about 30 degrees above the horizon and moved in... Wait, this sounds like it was just the moon. Yeah. But I'm going to keep reading. It came up at the horizon. Oh, shit, it's the moon. My bad. That's not a quote. He later told a reporter that after the experience, he vowed never again to ridicule anyone who claimed to have seen a UFO. Yeah, he saw the moon. He saw the moon.
Mm-hmm.
And the Jose Canseco story?
Oh, I was on that one too? I thought Roy was on that one.
That was you.
I'm sorry, what?